and Training Minister Dr. Nzimande has expressed concerns over the violence during student protests. This after Wits University students went on a rampage last week, closing businesses in and around Braamfontein. The students are protesting over financial exclusion and the NSFAS cap on accommodation funding. For more on this, I'm joined by Ishmael Mnisi, who speaks on behalf of the Department of Higher Education. Ishmael, thank you so much for making time for us. How has the Minister of Higher Education intervened in this impasse between Wits University and students?
Clement, thank you very much and good day. Maybe before, Clement, I respond to your question, let me extend the Minister's condolences to the family, friends, relatives, and the Free State Provincial Government, including the political party of Mnisi, who passed away early this morning. Minister said that Mnisi was a selfless and a dedicated leader of the education sector. He was a compatriot who was passionate to see the children of the working class and the poor who to acquire decent education, in the basic education fraternity, particularly the acquisition of the STEM subjects, which are science, technology, engineering, and maths, which are so much required to fulfill the requirement of our skills. Now, with regards to your question, Clement, the Minister held a meeting with the University of South Africa, which is a forum of all the VCs of our universities, to discuss in the main two issues. Firstly, it was the issue of the 45,000 cap, and secondly, it was the issue of the eligibility criteria. You note that in most of the protests that we are having, particularly the protest at Wits, there was an issue relating to the 45,000 cap that Wits students, together with some other universities, are required to pay some amount to top up on top of what NSFAS would have provided for. Now, Minister met with the VCs and agreed to establish a committee which will urgently meet next week to look at the request by all the universities who indicated that they do have both university and private accommodation which required or which was above the cap. Now, that meeting met and the committee will start to do its work. However, we would like to indicate, Clement, that there are facts that in our implementation of the 45,000 cap, we have evidence of the collusion by some landlords, which now makes us to be weary of the whole request by especially private landlords for us to increase this. Hence, we have requested assistance from the Competitions Commission to intervene by really looking at the whole student accommodation sector. Mm-hmm. Secondly, on the issues of the eligibility criteria, we have agreed that the issues of the 55% pass rate will be applied progressively, meaning in 2024, so that it should not affect the current cohort of students who are enrolled in our universities.
Okay, so you've mentioned a number of things. Let's start maybe with student accommodation. Has the Minister asked the Competition Commission now to intervene and investigate this alleged collusion? And is it only these private accommodation, or is it the university as well that's charging more for education? Because at Wits University, the students there have said that the 45,000 cap for residences should be scrapped because it costs more for accommodation, even at Wits University.
Well, as I've said, Clement, it is both within university and in the private accommodation establishments. So the Competition Commission will just look at the entire post-school education and training sector's accommodation sector to establish as to whether the prices that are charged justifies the costs. Because in terms of the work that we have done through NSFAS, we have arrived at the 45,000 cap, informed by a number of reports and studies that have been done, including by the United Nations on the cost of student accommodation. Now we've came to that determination after our consultations with both the students through the South African Union of Students. We've consulted the very same institutions through USAF. We've consulted labor for us to make this determination. So for us to have came up to that conclusion, it is out of those consultations. And however, with the current state of affairs, we thought that it will be important that we relook at this, especially following our VCs who requested that we should go deeper into the costing of both university and private accommodation.
Okay, so when it comes to, I'm going through the list of the demands that the students at Wits University had. So the issue of the 45% cap, I imagine that is ticked now. That's an issue that you've dealt with. Now, they wanted all students owing 150,000 or less to be allowed to register for the 2023 academic year. So what decision was taken in that meeting with students and universities? Are universities going to allow all the students that are owing the institutions, whether they're part of beneficiaries of NSFAS or not, to register for this academic year?
Clement, we have a long-standing principled agreement with all our institutions that all students, both NSFAS and non-NSFAS students, which have academic places, and which are having debt, to universities, must be provided an opportunity to sign an acknowledgement of debt form, which basically students acknowledge that they are owing those institutions. We have requested our vice chancellors to implement this long-standing decision to allow all the students who qualify, both new and old students, particularly old students, to be enrolled at our universities. However, we said that for those that are doing final year, they must be given a transcript of their academic record, not their certificate, in order for them to be able to pursue employment opportunities or for further studies. So this is a long-standing agreement, it's not something new, and we agree that it should be done. Okay,
so the NSFAS eligibility criteria requires students to have an overall 55% pass rate. You mentioned this a little bit when you were explaining what's come out of the meeting. Can you just clarify whether there are universities that are implementing this, and now that there have been concerns raised, what changes can be expected when it comes to this criteria?
What we are saying, Clement, in this instance is that the 55% pass rate will be implemented prospectively in 2024. These are part of our new rules that we are implementing. We have requested our universities to set it aside for this academic year and implement it in the new year. All those that will be affected, of course, are those that are new students, because the new students currently have been accepted for places in our universities based on this criteria. But for those that have been in the system already, they will not be affected. However, this will be implemented in the 2024 academic year.
All right, let's talk about the missing middle now. These are people who do not qualify for NSFAS, but they struggle to afford higher education fees. How is the department dealing with this? Have you finalized your comprehensive plan to respond to the concerns of students who are just not quote-unquote, poor enough, but at the same time, they're not able to afford tuition fees?
Clement, in relation to this issue, we are now at the final stages of the approval of our comprehensive student financial model. You would recall that we have started to work on this last year, following a cabinet request to the minister and the sector broadly, that we need to have a broad financial model that will cover the students who are falling outside of the NSFAS criteria. Now we have consulted extensively within the sector, and we have also consulted the Banking Society of South Africa, and a number of banks. We are currently in consultation with them for them to partner with us in as far as this is concerned. But the arrangements, Clement, that are there, let's understand the whole issue of the missing middle students. We are making provisions to cover such students through a number of bursary schemes that we've been offering through the National Skills Fund, through our SETAs, various departments as well, and private companies are covering students who are falling within the missing middle, including funding that has always been there within universities to make sure that those who are not funded at all by NSFAS are covered within those parameters. What we are doing within the comprehensive funding model is to formalize all these funding mechanisms so that they should be formalized as we are doing with NSFAS and particularly involving the private sector to come on board in the form of loans, in form of bursaries and awards that they will give to various students to cover for this missing middle. So we should not labor under the impression that there has not been funding dedicated towards those who are not NSFAS students. But through this mechanism that we are now going to introduce, hopefully in 2024, it will be very clear how the missing missing middle students will be covered, including, Clement, the funding of our postgraduate students who we are funding through our research foundation, which is an agency of the Department of Science and Innovation, which Minister Nzimande is also responsible for.
Why isn't there a standard commitment or agreement for every single year, Ishmael, when it comes to the issues that from that meeting with University South Africa and students, there's now this agreement that's been made around allowing students to register even when they owe universities, and they signed that acknowledgement of debt form, and also this issue of capping accommodation to 45,000 rand, because it appears to me that it's almost like the department waits for students to go on a rampage, and then there's instability at the institutions, and then that's when we see some urgency sitting down with all the stakeholders to do what the students would have been protesting and demanding that it's done, which are legitimate concerns. Clement,
when I started my response, I said we have been consulting extensively since last year, November, with the students through the South African Union of Students, which represent all our universities, and with SAFETA, which represents all our TVET college students. We've been consulting with labor, we've been consulting with the VCs on the very same issues that we are talking about now. And so we are, of the view that we are, one of the most consulting departments, because we view and regard our stakeholders as a key component of the work that we do. So we would not implement any other decisions or policies without such consultations. However, one thing that we cannot prevent is the protest, the right to protest by students, either on the issues that we would have agreed on or on completely new issues that probably they experienced during the registration period. The issues that I've indicated now, as I said, these are long-standing agreements that we have agreed on since in 2020 to allow the students with debt to sign the debt acknowledgement forms, to allow the students to be given their academic records, the issues of the missing middle student we have been working on and made agreements with the student leadership and our institutions a long time ago, more than 2019. Now, we are talking of a moving target here, of which we are saying we expect that as we engage with the student leadership and our VCs, they must bring all the issues into the meeting so that if there is any issue that has been outstanding in terms of their concern, we address them. And the only issues in this regard are the issues of the cap, the 45,000 cap, and the whole issue of the eligibility criteria, which we, in our view, because these were new additions, we said let's include them as part. But the other issues, Clement, has been part of our consultations and will continue to consult our students even further.
All right. So the minister has been urging students to return to class and student leaders to also withdraw from, of course, these protests. How confident is the minister that these measures and agreements that have been announced are going to be sufficient to end the protests, not only at Wits University, but potential protests as well at other institutions?
Clement, if these protests are genuinely about the rights of our students to have, the learning environment and for them to protect the academic year, with the interventions, added interventions that we are now have introduced, we see no reason for the continuation of this protest. That's why the minister has now called upon the leadership of the SRCs throughout the country, both in our universities and also in our TVET colleges, that if ever there are any outstanding issues, we have made our doors open. The VCs have committed to make their doors open. Our TVET colleges principals have also committed to make their doors open. So there is no need for a protest in this regard. Let's go back to the boardroom and resolve any other outstanding issues. In our purview, we think that most of the agent issues that have been raised thus far have been attended to and will continue to attend to and explain to the leadership of the students. All that we have requested our VCs and the SRC is that they must go back locally into their own campuses and sort out any outstanding issue. This is the reason why the minister has called for the return of class and equally thanked our institutions who also had a hybrid learning modes of teaching and learning in instances where there has been protestations. So we would really urge our universities, management, our students to work together to resolve whatever that might be outstanding. All right.
Ishmael Mnisi, spokesperson for the Department of Higher Education, thank you for making time. I saw that the Wits SRC has indicated that they will have their meeting today and decide on the way forward in light of course, these agreements that have been reached at that meeting between the minister and the other stakeholders. Now, as we wait for